I sold my children for 16,000 cedis a month, and I didn't even know until it was already too late to take them back. My name doesn't matter. Call me Amma. Everything else is true. It was in 2024, and I was 19, a first-year student in a university in Accra, and my fees were already 3 months late. Every girl on my timeline was posting a life I couldn't afford. I wanted that life too. My friend, I'll call her Rahel, was the one who brought the offer. She said there was a man, a wealthy Nigerian businessman, living in one of the big estates near Italy gone. They called him Chief. Before Rahel, my life was ordinary in every sense. Lectures in the morning, a part-time job selling mobile money in the afternoon, and the evening spent doing calculations that never balanced no matter how I arranged them. I would stare at my fees balance on the student portal like it might change if I looked hard enough. It never did, OJ. My father had passed 3 years earlier, and my mother's small shop barely covered our food. Rahel noticed the way I flinched whenever anyone mentioned school fees. She wasn't cruel about it. She simply said one evening that she knew a way for both of us to stop worrying about money altogether. I asked her what kind of way. She smiled and said, "The kind you don't ask too many questions about." I should have listened to the warning folded inside that sentence, but I didn't. When we drove to the compound, OJ, I thought we had entered a movie set. Marble floor, a gate that opened by itself, a house so big I got lost looking for the bathroom. Chief himself did not look like what you had imagined. Clean-shaven, soft-spoken, a gold cross around his neck. If I showed you his photo, you would say, "This man goes to church," and you'd be right. He goes to church. That's what still confuses me the most, OJ. A man can kneel in the pews on Sunday and do the things he does in the dark on other nights. Nobody wants you that evil can be well dressed. He told us plainly in our first meeting that there were things his wife would never be asked to do. Those things were reserved for women outside the marriage, and never just one woman at a time. I won't lie to you and pretend I refused out of deep moral clarity. Money was tight, OJ. He offered each of us an allowance, paid monthly, for one meeting a month. And I said yes before he finished the sentence. Once a month, OJ, that was the arrangement. After that one night, I was free to live my life, date whoever I wanted, as long as I stayed careful and never brought any risk back to him. In the beginning, it was simple. A hotel room, always the biggest suite, always for one night. Me and 3 other girls with him. In the morning, envelopes, cash, no questions asked, no receipts, nothing written down. For a 19-year-old with unpaid fees, the envelopes felt like rescue. I told myself I was smart, not desperate. I told myself this was a business arrangement, and business arrangements don't need forgiveness. None of us had children. Only one of the girls had a baby from years earlier. The rest of us joked that children were a task we couldn't afford on our bodies and our bank accounts both. We laughed about them, OJ. We really did. Motherhood felt like something that happened to other women. Women who hadn't found a shortcut. I know how foolish that sounds, but I felt it fully at that time. Then came the contract. Chief called that a contract. Though nobody signed a paper, he brought out a small needle and a shallow bowl. He said this was how he sealed arrangements with the women who worked with him. He pricked his own finger first, then each of us, and let the blood fall together into that bowl. He sealed it in a small pouch and put it in the boot of his car. We never asked questions where it went. The next month, we didn't meet at a hotel. We met at a cemetery outside the city. One Rahel wouldn't even name out loud. We drove there in a black car with the tinted window, and my stomach was on nuts. Before anything happened, OJ, he made us drink a bitter tea. It made my skin spin, made the edges of everything soft. I don't remember agreeing to drink it. I only remember that refusing didn't feel like an option anymore. I'm not going to describe everything into detail of what happened at the graveyard, OJ, because some things don't need description to carry their weight. What I will say is this: it was a ritual, it was frightening, and it went on for hours. We wore a red robe, 2 mats, 2 blankets, a certain small bowl with mixed colors inside. These became fixtures of every visit after that. The details repeated themselves like something neither of us had chosen to belong to. Afterwards, always, there was a bow passed between us, and we had to hold it together as instructed. I won't explain further. I'll only say that by the time the sun came up, none of us spoke in the car. The money kept coming, 16,000 a month, cash and clean. And OJ, that money changed my life in ways I can't pretend to regret entirely. My hair was always fresh. My rent was never late. My siblings ate. But I was smarter than my friend about one thing. While they moved into expensive apartments in the suburbs, spending half their allowance on rent, I stayed in my old neighborhood and saved almost everything I could. My plan was simple: reach 26, 27, with enough capital to start my own business and walk away from Chief entirely. I told myself the graveyard nights were temporary, a bridge, not a destination. I even stopped attending lectures altogether, OJ. There were no versions of my old life that made sense anymore, next to the numbers arriving in my account every month. I told myself the degree could wait, or maybe never come at all. My mother thought I'd found a good job in event planning. She would ask sometimes why I never brought clients home, and I'll change the subject quickly. The way you learn to do when every honest answer leads somewhere you can't take back. Rahel and I stopped talking as much as we used to. It's strange how something meant to bond people together, a shared secret this heavy, can end up pushing them apart instead. We reminded each other too much of ourselves. There were nights I sat alone counting the cash, feeling something between pride and disgust, unable to separate the two feelings clearly. Pride, that was providing; disgust at exactly what the providing had cost me. Then Chief told us something that changed everything, OJ. He said plainly that once we began this arrangement, our bodies would no longer be able to carry children. He called it a condition of the contract, permanent, non-negotiable. At that time, I agreed without flinching. A child felt like an expense I couldn't afford. Another mouth, another set of school fees, another reason to stay poor. I told myself I was choosing freedom over burden. Then I met someone, OJ, a normal man, not rich, not flashy, just steady and kind in a way I hadn't experienced before. We started talking about our future, about a little girl who might look exactly like me. For the first time in years, I wanted to be a mother. Not someday, now. The wanting arrived so suddenly it frightened me, because right behind it came the memory of what Chief had told us in that hotel room. His name was Kwame. This man, I love OJ. He works at a small logistic company. Nothing glamorous, but he shows up when he says he will. And that alone made him feel like a miracle after everything I'd been through. We'll talk late in the night about small things: a house with a veranda, a daughter with my stubbornness, and his patience. I let myself imagine a version of my life that had nothing to do with envelopes or graveyards. I never told him about Chief. How could I, OJ? There is no gentle way to explain a cemetery, a red rope, a bow passed between trembling hands. Some truths don't survive translation into a conversation about our future together. So I carried it alone, the way I'd carried everything else since my father died. I smiled through dinners with his family, nodded when his mother asked about grandchildren, and felt the weight of my silence grow heavier each time. I've tried everything since then, OJ. Traditional herbs from healers who promised to cleanse my womb. Clinic visits I paid for in cash, so nobody would ask questions. A pill from a backstreet pharmacy that I was told would clear any backlogs. Nothing has worked, OJ. Every month brings the same result. And every month, the man I loved asks gently, hopefully, if there is news yet. I smile and say, we should keep trying. I don't tell him why we can't. I've sat in 3 different clinic waiting rooms in Accra, filling out forms with half-truths, watching over women rub their bellies while I waited for my results. I always suspected wouldn't change anything about my situation. One doctor told me my scans looked normal, which somehow made things worse, not better. If nothing was physically wrong, then whatever was blocking me lived somewhere science couldn't reach. Somewhere I'd agreed to, years without fully understanding the cost. I traveled once to a village outside Koforidra on the recommendation of a woman at church to see a healer known for treating exactly this kind of trouble. She looked at me for long, moments before she even spoke. She said something was tied around me, something old, and that untying it would take more than herbs and prayer. I left with a bottle of bitter liquid and fear I hadn't fully named until that day. At night, Chief visits me in my dream. He reminds me in the same calm church-going voice that he allowed us more freedom than the woman who came before us. We should be careful and be grateful, he says. We should be patient. I lie awake afterwards, wondering if gratitude is even the right word for what I feel towards him. Some nights it's close to grief. Other nights it's something sharper, something I don't want to name out loud, even to you. The dreams don't always feel like dreams, OJ. Sometimes I wake up certain he was actually standing at the foot of my bed. That calm smile fixed in place before the shape of the room reassembles itself around me. Kwame had noticed I sleep badly. He asks if something is wrong, and I tell him it's exam stress, work stress, anything but the truth. He rubs my back until I fall back asleep, unaware of what he's soothing me from. I've started keeping a small light on at night, something I never needed before all this began. It doesn't stop the dreams, but it makes the morning after feel slightly less like I'm still standing in that cemetery. There are moments, brief ones, where I convince myself none of it was real. that I imagined the whole arrangement out of desperation and shame. Then the bank statement arrives. The deposit still listed plainly, and I remember everything was real. The contract, he told us once, only ends two ways: his death or ours. I've turned that sentence over so many times, it's once smooth in my mind, like a stone I keep in my pocket without meaning to. I think about starting my business first. 500,000 cedis, that's my target. I'm at a fraction of that now, saving what I can, refusing to touch the principal even when temptation whispers otherwise. After that, OJ, I don't know what happens. I've had thoughts I'm not proud of, about a man like Chief simply not existing anymore, about my life quietly returning to normal the way it was before any of this began. I'm not asking you to defend me. Judge me if you need to. I've judged myself plenty already. In the mirror, in church, in the quiet after my boyfriend falls asleep hoping for news I can't give to him. But understand where I'm standing, OJ. I am the one who pays my mother's bills. I'm the one who arranged a caretaker for my brother, who has not been the same since his divorce 2 years ago. His wife left him for another man, a man who once told my brother to his face that he could kill him if he wanted to. My brother has not recovered from that threat. Something in him simply stopped working right. Now, there must always be someone with my mother, in case my brother's mood turns dangerous. She is old. She cannot protect herself. That responsibility sits on my shoulders alone. And Chief's money is the only thing holding it up. My brother used to be the funniest person in our house, OJ. He would make my mother laugh until she cried. Back before the divorce. Back before that other man threatened him and something inside him quietly gave way. Now he goes days without speaking. Then hours pacing the compound, muttering things none of us can follow. The caretaker I pay for cost almost as much as my mother's shop brings in some months. Without Chief's envelope, I don't know how we would manage. My mother doesn't know where the caretaker's salary comes from. She thinks I've simply done well for myself, that God has blessed the event planning work she believes I do. I let her believe it because the alternative would break something in her too. Sometimes I think about what would happen if I simply stopped, walked away from Chief entirely, and let the money disappear. I picture my brother without the caretaker, my mother alone with him on bad days, and I keep going back. So yes, OJ, I know exactly what I've become entangled in. I know the word people would use for what happened at the cemetery. I know how this sounds read back to me in someone else's voice. But I keep going back, OJ, because the envelope arrives every month like clockwork, and my family survival has never once asked me whether I felt clean about how I paid for it. If there is a healer listening to this, someone who has actually reversed the ritual like this are said to do to women's body, I am asking you directly, not for judgments, but for help. I don't know if my womb can be freed. I don't know if the man I love will still want a future with me once enough time passes without a child arriving. I don't know if Chief will let any of us go. What I know is this, OJ. I am 19. No, 21 now. And I have already made a bargain I'm not sure any amount of money can undo. Please, just let people hear this. Someone out there might know a way back for me. I think about the version of me that's never met Rahel, never walked into the estate near East Legon, never learned what a cemetery looks like at midnight in a stranger's headlights. She feels like a different person entirely now. I don't know if that version of me could have survived university without the money, or if she would have dropped out anyway, sung by feast and shame in some quieter, less dramatic way that nobody would ever ask me to confess. Some nights I almost envy her, the version of me that stayed clean and struggled honestly. Other nights I remind myself struggling honestly doesn't pay a caretaker's salary or keep my mother's shop stocked with anything worth selling. Kwame proposed last night, OJ. I said yes before I had fully thought it through. Because saying no felt like admitting something I still can't say out loud, even in a message like this one, even anonymously. I don't know what I'll tell him when the wedding planning turns to children, as it inevitably will. I don't know if I'll finally tell him the truth or keep inventing doctors and stressing the bad luck for as long as I can manage. 500,000 Cedis, that's still the number I whisper to myself some nights. The number that means freedom, or at least the closest thing to freedom I can still imagine for myself at this point. I don't know what happens after I reach it. I don't know if Chief lets women go quietly once they stop needing him, or if the contract truly only ends the 2 ways he described to us that first year. Please don't fully condemn me, OJ, and don't fully pity me either. Just let this sit with your listeners the way it sits with me most nights, unresolved, heavy, and impossible to put down, even when I want nothing more than to end this. This is your anonymous OJ, and if you are new here, I would like you to like, subscribe, share, comment, and hype this channel, and tell somebody about your anonymous OJ. I'll see you in our next conversion.